The film opens on a house fire, while a little girl with a white streak in her hair walks away from it before collapsing on the street. Jump to 8 years later, where the girl, now named Phoenix, is running away from a dog. She climbs up a fence and finds a car with a gun inside, before Norman Nordstrom, the blind man, comes up from behind her and takes the gun. This was a training exercise that he has her prepare for survival, and the dog is his own, named Shadow. Norman has been raising Phoenix like a daughter all these years, but he is depriving her of a regular childhood by refusing to let her attend public school. She is taken out for a day by a friend of Norman's, former Army Ranger Hernandez. She takes Phoenix out to the park, but while she wants to play with the other kids, she stays behind. When they stop at a gas station, there is a news report of a surgeon being arrested for his involvement in a black market organ donor scheme. Phoenix goes to the bathroom and is found by a man named Raylan, who appears to be making a creepy pass at her, but Phoenix has Shadow stand by so he won't bother her. Hernandez brings Phoenix home and tells Norman that she deserves a normal childhood, but also tells him not to feel that he is a bad man because of the mistakes of his past while serving as a SEAL. On her way home, Hernandez sees a truck blocking the road. She honks but gets no response and has to step out. She finds Raylan and his goons, Duke, Jared, and Raul, in the car and tells them to move. They do so, but when Hernandez goes back to her car, a fifth goon, Jim Bob, attacks Hernandez and bludgeons her to death with a hammer. Phoenix is getting ready for bed. Shadow hears something and starts barking. When Norman tries to feed Shadow, he realizes he isn't coming to him. He goes outside and feels around to find Shadow dead with a bullet in his body. Norman realizes something is wrong. The 5 goons make their way into the house, but Phoenix spots them and makes her way through the room undetected. Unfortunately, she ends up coming across Jim Bob, who nearly gets her, but Norman breaks through the door behind Jim Bob and attacks him, allowing Phoenix to run. Norman is injured and goes to tend to his wound where Jared comes up on him. Norman fights him and superglues his mouth and nose shut to suffocate him. Jim Bob, who is also Jared's brother, comes and punctures a hole through his cheek to help him breathe before Jared uses broken glass to cut the glue off. Phoenix runs to the basement, but Duke breaks through the door. She runs into a container and locks herself in, but Duke starts to fill it with water. Norman makes his way down there and tries to smoke Duke out, but he retaliates by putting a live wire above the container, waiting for the water to fill up so Phoenix will either drown or be electrocuted. Norman fights Duke, who keeps trying to reach for a knife. Norman manages to pull the wire away from the container and hide behind a table before throwing the wire to ignite the gas, creating an explosion that fries Duke. Norman tips the container over to get the water out and pull Phoenix out safely. As the two try to make their way to safety, the other 4 goons try to find them. Raylan calls out to Phoenix and says that Norman is not her father and that he has been lying to her. He finds them and takes off his hat, revealing that he also has a white streak in his hair like Phoenix does, meaning he is her biological father. He explains that he was blamed for the explosion of their home and was in jail for years, waiting to find Phoenix again. Jared finds Norman and tries to attack, but he smashes Jared's whole skull with a shovel. Jim Bob finds his brother's body and is devastated. Raylan's dog goes after Norman while Raul knocks Phoenix out with a chloroform rag. Once they are out and Norman is incapacitated, the goons set the house on fire and leave Norman and the dog for dead. Raylan brings Phoenix back to his home, which is basically a drug den. He tells her that her real name is Tara and gives other details to her background. Phoenix doesn't want to stay and starts to leave until she hears a woman in a wheelchair singing a song, Blackbird, that she remembered from childhood. The woman is Phoenix's biological mother and Raylan's wife, Josephine. They bring Phoenix to a room and explain that their house was a meth lab that blew up, and the chemicals from the explosion caused serious damage to Josephine's heart, and she needs a donor, and they had Phoenix in mind. They sedate her with drugs from orange juice, and she passes out. Norman wakes up and finds the dog, managing to get her to help him walk back to Raylan's house while he gathers supplies. The heart surgery nearly takes place, with Raylan using the surgeon seen on the news earlier. Raul expresses his disgust with the procedure, though he is the only one who seems to have a problem with it. Just before the surgeon can cut out Phoenix's heart, the power gets cut out. The goons go after Norman, but when Jim Bob tries to fight him in retribution for Jared's death, Norman gets little rattling balls and shoves them into Jim Bob's throat, which allows him to hear wherever he goes so that Norman can throw a hammer at Jim Bob's head. Raul goes with 3 other gunmen to find him, but they step on water that he senses while laying down, and Norman shoots them dead. Raul tells Norman about what Raylan and Josephine are trying to do, and he wants no part of it, so he tells Norman to catch them before they take Phoenix away. The villains almost get out until Norman slashes the surgeon's throat. He sets off smoke bombs while Raylan goes after him. He fires his gun like crazy and ends up shooting Josephine dead. Her wheelchair starts rolling toward a deep, empty pool, and Phoenix is handcuffed to her. Phoenix grabs a machete and starts hacking off Josephine's arm, but still ends up falling down the pool with her. Norman catches Raylan and gouges his eyes out with his thumbs. Phoenix climbs out of the pool, and Norman tells her to stay away from him as he admits the evils he has committed, stating he is just a bad man. After it appears she has left, Raylan stabs Norman in the back and nearly slashes his throat, but Phoenix impales Raylan with the machete, and he falls into the pool next to Josephine. Phoenix holds Norman in her arms until he appears to die. Phoenix leaves the facility and goes to the park where she finds the kids from earlier, asking if she can join them. They allow her to join, and she tells them her name is Phoenix. After the credits, the dog comes by Norman's body, and it is implied he might still be alive.